Boy Scout here with 3 great knives from Schrade. The SCHF 36, 37, and 38. What makes these knives great? More than anything, the price. The price, we might as well knock this out right now because you want to know. Anywhere between $27 and $35. That is amazing for what you get. And we'll go over all of that throughout the course of this review. But to touch on it right now, $10.95 steel on all of these. TPE handles on all of them. Nylon sheaths with sharpeners and ferro rods included. Amazing, amazing deal for, again, what did I say, between 27 and 35 bucks, something like that, depending on where you pick them up. Amazing price. So, does the quality, and again, for that price, you don't expect much, but does the quality reach a level that you want to spend that money on these knives? Well, I'll leave it up to you to decide at the end of the video, but I'm going to give you lots of data points to study and to consider. Among those is lots of action, lots of footage of these knives in action. And you saw some of that in the beginning of this video. You'll see lots more of it throughout. So let's start by unsheathing these knives and seeing some of the components and seeing what they come with. So what we have right here, I never know until I pull them out, is the SCHF 36. A little preview of things to come right there. And then this should be the SCHF 30, I want to say 8. Yep, there's the 38. And that would make this the 37. The 37 and the 36 are very closely related by blade shape, and you can plainly tell that. The handles are exactly the same on all 3 of these knives, but the blade shapes are very closely related on the 36 and the 37. 38 kind of strays from that, goes with a different intent, I suppose, but they all are very ergonomic and very usable. So there's a quick look at the knives. You're going to see, once again, plenty of footage of them in action. Let's go down to the sheaths. They vary slightly. Depending on the model, you might get a larger one, but I believe that the 36 and the 38 use the exact same sheath, exact same size, quite interchangeable. You have a little snap there, obviously, to retain. You've got a little bit of a plastic insert right here to help it not tear up or cut any of the nylon, obviously. You've got right here a pouch on the outside, which contains a ferro rod, built-in striker, so you can do all the fire starting work you need to with this one piece, as well as an included diamond file sharpener. It's coarse, but it'll do the job for bringing that edge back to something usable if you're in the field and you just need to restore that edge. And all 3 of the knives come with every one of those components, once again, thrown in for that low, low price which we described earlier. It's pretty outstanding. You've also got a little leg tie right here. You've got an easy way for attachment to your belt. Feeds under like that, and then over the top of your belt like so. Very secure, retains well. It's very reminiscent of the sheath that you find on the SCHF 9, which I reviewed in the past, which I feel works very well. The Tpe handle scales are the exact same on all 3 of these knives. And how do they feel in hand? Really good, actually. They're just the right size. I would say the handle itself is a little bit short for me. You can kind of see that here if you look at it. See how my pinky does come to the very end. I'd like to have a little left over there. I could say, you know, maybe the Cold Steel SRK does that a little better for my taste. We've got just a little bit left over there. And I do like that length. However, for the money, this works very well. You get yourself a lanyard, wrap it through there, tie it to your wrist, and you've actually got all the retention you're going to need with this knife, with either one of these knives, really. And again, handles are exactly the same. You've got the same very coarse, very aggressive jimping on the top. Closer look at that. The handles are attached by way of these Allen screws. And throughout the hard use that I put the knives through, there was no backing out of those screws. They stayed on nice and tight. The handle scales were just perfect the whole time. stayed on and stayed retaining very, very well. You can see that pattern on there, which does work pretty well whether you have your bare hands or gloves to help you retain that in hand. As we talk about the grip that you'll get on these knives, we can obviously see a difference between the 38 and the 36 and 37. The big difference I'm talking about is that forward finger choil right here. You can wrap your finger all the way up here to get additional and greater control over that knife for fine carving and all kinds of work of that sort. Which means that this knife in hand, that knife in hand, in my opinion, are a little bit better, especially given the small handle. There's a look at the 37 and how that works out. You can see that the actual forward finger choil is a little bit smaller on the 36 than it is on the 37. However, I feel like it's worked well in either case, and I don't feel like one is usable and the other one's not usable. I feel like they're both quite good in the work I was able to do with them. I don't know what the name of the coating is that they use on these knives. I've found it to start to wear and chip away somewhat as I've used them. You can see that a little bit more on some of the knives than others. There you go. It's starting to actually flake away on this one, the SCHF 38. So this is some of the wear you can expect from your knife as you continue to use it in the outdoors. The blade grind on the 36 and the 37, you can see that it's a saber grind that comes up fairly high. I'd say about not quite 2/3 of the way up the stock, and then is hollow ground down to that final edge, which creates a fairly fine edge that's pretty good for carving. Again, with that forward finger choil, you can choke up on that and actually get some of that fine work done. I found it to work pretty well. So that fine edge is pretty useful, and I found it to be quite durable in all the work that I did with it. Chopping, batoning, all that type of stuff. You can see a difference in the grind on the SCHF 38, which instead of coming up almost 2/3, comes up just a little over 1/3. It is, however, hollow ground just like the other two. For some reason, we have a much stronger tip on the 38 than we have on either the 36 or the 37. I did all the same prying and stabbing tests with these three knives, put them roughly through the same type of abuse, and clearly the 36 and the 37 didn't quite pass that test. Let's talk about that test real quickly. How important is it for a knife to survive a stab and pry test like that? In my opinion, not that important. That is pretty much an abusive test. The way I see it, if you're going to do a stab and pry test with your knife, expect it to fail. If it passes, it gets extra credit, extra high marks. But if it fails, well, that's pretty much expected, because the stab and pry test is basically there to chip off and bust tips of knives, as I did with these two. So I don't fault Schrade in any way. I don't think that that's bad manufacturing or bad heat treat or anything like that. I think that's just an extremely abusive test, and it helps us to know the limitations of those tips of these knives. Overall, I'd say that they are outstanding in their capabilities. The tip strength, we know, is not quite as strong as it could be, though. If we want to talk about the weight and the length, the SCHF 37 is roughly 7 inches in that blade length. The weight is something like 14.5 ounces. Then we go down to the size of this one right here, the 36, which is, I think, 5+ inches on that blade length, and I think about 12.5 ounces, something like that. Anyway, I believe they're all well over 10 ounces. They've got a nice thick blade stock on all of them. That is not skimpy at all. These are sort of in that sharpened pry bar territory as far as overall blade strength, in my opinion. Given that weight, are these going to be good backpacking knives? Well, if weight is critical to you in a backpacking scenario, and it's pretty important to me, I would say no, they're not really going to be great knives for that role. Good survival knives, good for kind of quick outings into the woods, maybe a day hike, something like that, where you'd like to have a good robust knife on you, where you don't intend to spend a few days out in the wilderness or in that national park or wherever you might be. Perhaps it is a good knife for that kind of a quick trip where you want something robust. I also see this as a great bug out kit knife, something that you could dedicate to a kit, especially for that cost. Again, the investment is very small to get into it, and you've got a pretty tough knife made of, once again, 1095 steel. Good stuff, good handle, good sharpened edge on it. Came nice and sharp out of the box, if I didn't already say that. I mean, I did not need to improve these edges in the slightest to get out there and do the type of work I wanted to do with them. So I could definitely see these in a sort of bug out bag or car kit kind of role. These knives are Chinese made. If you love your USA made products and you don't want to buy anything Chinese, well, you're not going to want to buy these. However, if you want the best bang for your buck and you don't mind getting something from overseas as long as it's good quality, I'd say that this is a pretty good buy right here. Besides that fact, a lot of Schrade's knives are made overseas. From my experience, almost all of them are. And you do get a really good bang for your buck with their products. But then again, that is because they are built overseas. Some of you guys are thinking, now, these all seem like good knives. Which one should I buy? Well, for the price, you probably don't have to buy just one. Again, $27 to $35. You might be able to buy all three, stick them in 3 different places, enjoy all 3 of them, play with them and have a great time, and not feel too bad about it because you got 3 blades for the price of a lot of other blades. I mean, there are some blades from K-Bar that come to mind that you would get into one knife for the cost of all 3 of these. Again, some of those are USA made, probably are. So there's that trade-off. However, you get a lot of stuff here, so it's possible that you could get all 3 of them, not really have to choose. Then again, maybe you do only want to spend 30 bucks on a decent knife. Don't spend any more than that. Which one would you choose? Well, that's really tough to say. I think both of these have superior ergonomics due to the fact that you've got that choke-up finger choil you can get a hold of, have a little better control in the work that you're doing. I do like that a lot better. Having said that, of the 3, this one definitely performed the best. The SCHF 38 with that kind of a shallow grind to it, shallow saber grind to it, just ended up being a much stronger tip and probably a tougher blade overall. Again, due to that shallow saber grind on it. So that, again, if you're looking for durability and that is your main concern, this is probably the one I'd recommend of the 3. The Frontier series of knives from Schrade, the SCHF 36, 37, and 38, they're an outstanding value. They're pretty darn good quality. And I think they're more than tough enough, notwithstanding some small limitations. I definitely recommend them. If you're interested in some knives like this, or you're wanting to get into a good fixed blade for a great price, check these guys out. I'm Blade Boy Scout. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you.